So first thing I want to do, man, is give a shout out to educators, man, and specifically black educators. I work with kids. Been working for kids I've been working with kids for I want to say maybe 8 or 9 years now, which is crazy to me because I never thought I would work with kids. But when I first started doing it with kids, it was a mixture. It was like, some white, some indigenous, some Asian, stuff like that. You know what I mean? It was fine. Good experience. And I was the head of media at Quadrat Academy. But then I made a transition over to Boys and Girls Club, and then I went over to where I am now. I won't tell you that, but I work with kids. Right? I work with kids in our community, and it's a pleasurable experience. I got to keep it a buck with you. Kids will be kids, kids will be kids, teenagers will be teenagers. But I like the family feeling that I get there with my coworkers, which I think is amazing. They're all educators to some degree. My mother's an educator. I'm an educator, right? But working with these kids and seeing how we sort of like fill in the gaps that traditional education may or may not address, right? One, I think it's important to give a shout out to black educators because we need to be seen. Like sometimes black educators are the first representation of possibility for these black kids, right? What excellence looks like, what being serious looks like, what having, being professional, but at the same time having your flavor looks like. And I think that is just as much an important part of education as, math and science and, literature and stuff like that, right? So these black educators come in here and understand the dynamic, right, what some children are dealing with, whether they have good parenting at home, whether they don't, and filling in those gaps of teaching them the things they need to learn, but also making them culturally aware, being authentic, and kids can feel that. I think whether or not they consciously understand it or not, kids can feel that level of love and support that they get from a black educator. So I think that's important, man. I think that's important. I know that's important. Again, they teach beyond the textbook. There's going to be things that they need to learn in textbooks. And I love how the education system in general is evolving now. And not to disparage the education system, but like it has some holes in it, especially in 2025. It's kind of like we need to update the education system just like every other industry is being updated, right? So the education system as it is now, I think has been a bit outdated. And I do see more schools or organizations sort of like carving and personalizing education for each individual student or students that, have the same strengths or weaknesses, you know what I'm saying? To make the education more dynamic and more cohesive and stuff like that. So that's why I think this is an important shift as well, where it's like, let's update the education, but let's also educate our children on things culturally they need to be educated about. I don't think that's something we should just put on the back burner. We should lead with culture. We know the different things that have happened to our communities. Imagine what we'd be, and look what we still are as a community, right? The African Diaspora. Imagine if we had no interference, where we could potentially be right now. But I'm not here to give people passes or anything like that. But understanding what happened to us, the things that are still happening to us, but understanding that we have the power to turn the ship around. I think that's a powerful thing. And I think it starts with, obviously parenting and stuff like that, but also these educators with this black mindset to be like, let's pour in culture and excellence and get rid of generational curses and dysfunction and stuff like that. I think that's wildly important for our community. So again, shout out to educators in general, but more specifically black educators, right?